Good day! In today's video, we're going to discuss about the basic hand stitches. Sewing the basic hand stitches are very easy if you learn each step thoroughly before you start practicing the next step. Sewing by hand is a skill that most, if not all, people should probably attempt to master at some point. So here are the basic hand stitches: the back stitch, the basting, running stitch, outline stitch, blanket stitch, catch stitch, and chain stitch.
Basting. Basting is quite important in successful sewing. This is used to hold fabric temporarily in place until permanently stitched. There are 4 types of basting: hand basting, machine basting, pin basting, and basting edges with an iron.
Now let's refer to this video of Teacher Jen in order to further understand how to do basting stitch. First, you need to take large stitches. Making even or uneven stitch will depend on the fabric that you use. When pulling through, make sure that you leave an inch of thread out. And continue the same stitching until you finish your stitch.
Here is another video reference for you to understand how to do basting. First, you need to take large stitches. Making uneven or even stitch would depend on the fabric that you use. Pulling through, you need to ensure that you leave an inch of thread out. And continue the same stitching until you finish the stitch.
Back stitch. Make one running stitch, then take a back stitch to the beginning of the first stitch, thus overlapping each running stitch. Resembles machine stitching and is used to strengthen a seam made by hand.
Let's refer to this video to understand how a back stitch can be done. So start by doing a little stitch like a running stitch. Then go 1 stitch away. But now instead of carrying on stitching further, we are going to stitch back to the base of the front stitch and pull through. Repeat the same process until your stitch is done. Let's refer to this video to understand how a back stitch can be done. So start by doing a little stitch like a running stitch. Then go 1 stitch away. But now instead of carrying on stitching further, we are going to stitch back to the base of the front stitch and pull through. Repeat the same process until your stitch is done.
Let's proceed to the running stitch. To make this stitch, push point the needle in and out of fabric until you have several stitches on the needle. Hold fabric taut with left hand. Pull the needle through. Practice until you make fine, even stitches.
So make this video as a reference to better understand how running stitch are made.
Here, you can do running stitch by just stabbing the stitch and pulling through, and then coming back to the front and then pulling through again. Or you can either sew the stitch instead of stabbing. So start by getting a small piece of the fabric and then pulling through.
Outline stitch. This stitch is similar to the back stitch, but it is slanted. Make 1 slanted back stitch in front of another, letting each one overlap the one before it just a little bit, until the design is filled.
The blanket stitch. Put your needle in 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. Put the thread under the point of the needle and pull through. The catch stitch. This is used for a flat finish next to fabric, such as seam binding on a hem. Hold open hem edge away from you. Work from left to right. Take a stitch in the hem, then a tiny stitch to the right just beyond edge of hem with the point of needle to the left. This makes diagonal line that cross each other. The last is the chain stitch. Insert the needle in and out of the fabric, as in the running stitch. Bring the thread under the tip of the needle while still in the fabric, then pull the needle through.